guys, welcome back. Once again, we are finally back into StarCraft. Bottom right corner, it's going to be Monster, your light pink Zerg player from MVP. Very far top left corner, it's going to be Yoda, recently just taking out Vampire. You saw that in that game. Game was so epic. Battle Cruisers, Vampire was not ready for it whatsoever and essentially died. It was really unfortunate for him, but still an awesome engagement at the end.
Yeah, it was one of those weird, uncomfortable games where you don't really like. You were kind of hoping, like, Vampire, okay, try to get something. I don't care. Warp Prism dropped somewhere. He made his way over with one Warp Prism over to the island. It got killed by missile turrets, and after that, he was just basically like, "Well, I guess I'm bunkering up. That's all I'm gonna do."
And unfortunately, I even watched I was watching the games actually with all the chat. It was fun actually. We might actually want to throw off our games in the near future so I can stay out with the chat while we watch the first 4 ones and broadcast it again because it's a lot of fun hanging out with the chat. But anywho, I was watching the game and there was no way he never saw those battle cruisers ever whatsoever. And unfortunately, it's because there was 2 sensory towers up and there were missile turrets as well, so observers could never move their way on in. Perfectly done by Yoda to prevent any scouting from happening. So that's why he never transitioned into a better late game army, such as getting into a mothership and preparing for that army. So
very cool.
Something to point out there. Anywho, into our game, Monster Yoda.
That's right, and Yoda obviously taking the last game, a very strong Terran player. But I know we were talking about this yesterday a little bit, and but in this series so far, there's been very cyclical games. One, we have a matchup, a non-mirror matchup. Then the race that the person beats, they throw in the other one. So let's say, for example, there was a Terran who was very strong versus Protoss players. Yeah. Well, he beats a Protoss player, then the other team throws in a Zerg because they know he's weak against Zerg. Well, Zerg defeats the Terran, then the people throw in a Protoss player because they know, well, you're good against Terran, but you're not good against Protoss. And that's actually worked so far. The strategies have worked perfectly for these two teams, as we've seen a perfect, each team wins a game, and it goes back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, essentially a carousel of players just being thrown out, and we're getting to the point now where the players are so strong in their matchups that it just becomes being able to outplay your opponent. Yoda's actually got a 55% win ratio against Zerg. It's actually his second best matchup. Monster, though, is just so strong when it comes to playing Mutiling Baneling. He really loves to have his ground army out, being really strong, really active on the map, and having really quick upgrades as well. So we know Yoda really likes to have a lot of Marine Marauders and a lot of medevacs in the field.
Yes.
So I think this appears snipely. Hey, he likes to play ground army. Well, we have a player that's really good with the ground army as well.
Yeah, Monster's the very definition of the kind of the for the swarm sort of player. Yeah. If he detects any sort of weakness whatsoever, it's almost like a July Zerg 2.0. I know a lot of players have been called that, but he'll flip on the kill switch and then just start ravaging you with Zerglings and Banelings.
I love me a Zerg that has a kill switch, man. It's
yes.
so exciting to watch.
I do too.
When they have that macro to follow up as well. So.
Oh, speaking of Zergs with kill switches, we of course do have, for those of you who are just tuning in now, the semifinals and finals of our IPL 6 International Regional immediately following this set. So as soon as we get to the conclusion of this, we're going into it. The semifinals, as I mentioned before, we have IM Seed versus the new Azubu player, San, going up against, and then on the other semifinal, we have Startail Hack versus MVP Dongray Goo. So should make for some cool matches.
Either way, it's going to be fun all night, man. We're just getting into the best of the best here as we move forward in our respective brackets, if you will. IPTL, and then, of course, the international qualifier. Looking into Monster here, moving into Heavy Queen, wants to grab a third. When we were watching this game actually a little bit earlier yesterday before the internet crashed on us, he really loves to have early drones out. Really gets that economy booming. We notice he never gets that third until a little bit on the later side. Usually want to have that third about 4:15 to 4:45, and we're already around 5:30, and we're not even having that third. That's because he's getting queens out and just droning like a madman.
Yeah, you see another round of 10 drones coming out now, so at the 5.5-minute mark, he's going to be on 37. So that's quite a bit. That's a heavy investment into economy, and a nice job to utilize his excess APM to drop down that creep nice and early, too.
Yoda has a good build, though, that kind of does a good job of countering, or at least being a little bit on the equal side here. He's moving into a third command center very quickly, getting a little bit of Hellion pressure on the field. And this is just a standard economy-esque like Terran. Yeah. Yoda plays it really, really well here. So just getting the third, and it's going to go ahead and SCV up. But Monster finally getting his third hatchery out. Notice he hasn't moved into a lair quite yet. In fact, he is moving, I believe, into 2 gases. Yep. And these 2 gases allow him to get double evolution chamber out, get his double upgrades out, and get that really strong ground army he likes to have with Banelings.
That's very true, but obviously he's going to have a little bit of a weak point over at this base, but he's mitigating that a little bit. He's got a lot of active creep tumors heading in all directions, so he'll connect the creep very early on, even if this base is overall a bit late. Of course, he's not going to have to worry about switching so many drones over there right away until he actually does, focus on making sure that he gets creep over there, Spinecrawler's queens in place, so Hellions aren't going to do too much damage poking in at the third. They're mostly for map control for Yoda at the moment until he decides decides that he wants to duck into the natural.
Well, Yoda behind this is getting his 3rd and 4th Hellions, start moving over there as well. He has moved into Stim Pack, so Stim Pack will be on the research in case any counterattacks do happen if your Hellions do get caught. If you ever get aggressive with Hellions, make sure you get that Stim Pack started up so you can defend pretty much anything that comes your way. For the most part, Yoda just needs to be very active, try and get a couple of creep tumors. I know it's a little bit hard with Zerg really focusing on those creep tumors as of late, but get those Hellions in there and try to get the damage if you can.
51 drones at 7.5 minutes is the final count there. So
booming, man.
Yeah, no kidding. I remember the olden days back in beta, and they're like, okay, if you're going for a 3-rack stim timing push, you're really aiming for about 50 supply at the 8-minute mark.
Yeah.
And pro players are just like, what's that? What's that? Monster's at 75 right now.
That's another reason why I'm scared for Heart of the Swarm. I just don't want to see everyone stopping their droning and SVing because they're going for all these like 2 base attacks.
Yeah.
So. Although Heart of the Swarm's coming out, I'm scared for how the metagame will change so darn much. The 4 Hellions do pop in. A couple of links here. Notice speed isn't done quite yet, and Monster's going to try and go ahead and pop in here, and he's very good with his Ling Micro. Keep an eye on him as he tries to engage this.
Yeah, and let's see here now as he's trying to get that surround, but of course speed's not quite done. It just finishes up, but the problem is it finishes up about 5 seconds after he loses an additional 5 Zerglings. So despite the good split that we saw before that helps him mitigate some of the damage, he does end up losing quite a bit of forces. Love this, though, the supply depot wall going around this bunker here. It's going to make sure it doesn't take any damage whatsoever for a while. But RTS games have kind of had the same pattern time and time again. I think Heart of Swarm's going to be no exception. People are either going to find a new unit or a new strategy that they can abuse. They'll abuse it until someone finds a way to be able to, I can make X unit and counter that out for a while. Then the game stabilizes for just a tiny little bit, but we're still more aggressive than the very stable game that we have in Wings of Liberty right now. Okay, well now when that I've learned to counter out that particular unit, now I know I only need X amount of certain units and I can diversify my tech paths a little bit. And eventually it just goes longer and longer and longer until we have more and more stable play.
Ooh, look at this. Looks like the Lings are going to catch the Hellions in the middle of the map here, and that's really huge for Yoda. Look at Yoda. He literally has no map control. That 12 o'clock Zonaga tower right there isn't even held by that Hellion either. Really needs to get on top of that because he needs to be aware of any huge aggressions falling after that. Most Zergs will start up a nice amount of units here, get some Balians going, and try to go for some kind of aggression on your middle line at your 3rd if they kill off that many Hellions.
And the Overlord just kind of staring down the medevac. The medevac is like, oh, no, I'm not doing anything here.
How you doing?
I'll just head back this. See you later, dude. Nothing going on here. Nothing to worry about. See you later. But hopefully Monster should be aware of this.
Yeah, he should start setting up for it. Actually, if we can click on the hatchery, see if he has any... Nope, he's selecting his units here. That if that drop does get by, Monster needs to work on his awareness just a tad bit. But with the Spine Crawler being there as well, it's going to make it a little bit easier for Monster to hold that drop. Also in the middle of the map, we have a push going for that Zonaga, 6 o'clock position here. So going to go ahead and grab that map control. That is so important. And the Lings do make it here just in time. And this will force Yoda to pull back on his drop.
One Marine got killed, and that was about it. Not much else happened. Scan goes down, picks off a few active creep tumors, but as you can see, Monster's doing a pretty good job keeping more active creep tumors a little bit farther back, so he's not going to lose any real creep here. The top has pretty decent creep spread too, so just checking around, he's really got all of his bases covered at the moment. Even though this was a later 3rd, all of his upgrades are hitting very quickly, as we see +2 already happening. Looks like these Marines are trying to poke at the Overlords from the low ground, and of course Monster moving into his very telltale Mutiling Baneling, but emphasis on the Lings and Banelings.
All right, well, smart play here. He's constantly being harassing with that medevac down in the bottom left corner, and since Monster has so many units there to try and defend against it, it allows him to kill off creep. But now with the units popping out, medevac is dealt with right away, and now Yoda is kind of forced back to retreat to his natural here. He doesn't have very many units on the field, and this medevac could be in trouble if Monster goes for it, and yes, he is certainly looking for it.
He is definitely looking for it, but it doesn't look like the mutas are going to get there quite in time. It was a nice job by Yoda just to pick right up and move back in there as quick as he could. But, taking a look at things now, a very diversified army coming out of Yoda at the moment, starting to even add on a few Marauders just to give a little bit of tankiness to his ground forces. I mean, certainly if he knows his opponent, we're going to see a lot of Banelings here pretty soon. Monster picking off a missile turret inside of the main here. There's enough Stim Marines that it looks like it's going to push these mutas away for a while, but that's a lot of tech labs and reactors sitting on the outside of this base.
Yeah, and Yoda agrees as well. That's why he's throwing up those 2 missile turrets. I really need to make sure I don't lose out on these facilities. Not really because you're losing out on really resources. You're losing out on a lot of time if you have to recreate those, and that's so important now, especially in the mid game, to be able to get out a lot of Marines. Mutas are going to pop in, take some free damage, going to pull on back, but we have some Banelings already created from Monster. He has 22 more Lings already on the way as well. He is wanting to get aggressive. He wants to slow down this third as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, Monster really thrives on 3 bases as well. He's going to his 4th at 12 o'clock, of course. When you're going to do some sort of heavy aggression when you're max, not a bad idea to get that down there, as the benefit is just massive when you pull it off. But look at this. Look at the timing. +2/+2, 17 Banelings, and +1 Flyer attacks, all hitting at exactly the same time for Monster, and that's going to be his moment to strike very soon.
Really interesting. He's poking with these mutas constantly, adding a couple more here and there, and Yoda's responding with a lot of Marines, and he actually slowed down siege tank production for a while because he wanted to get more Marines out and focus on the upgrades. So.
Oh god, this is the perfect moment to hit just before +2/+2 for ground forces and the +1 vehicle weapons. This is the absolute perfect timing for Monster here, and he crushes everything up at the front. His units are so strong compared to his opponent. 2-2 finally finishes up, but not before everything is destroyed for Yoda.
Nice amount of SCVs dying off as well. He kills off the bunker. The Mito's going to be able to clean up a decent amount of SCVs. It will be dealing with the Marines, but with the influx popping out for Yoda, they will be forced to retreat. But he has done a great amount of damage here, following up into more lanes as well and going straight down to the third.
That's right. This is a very dire situation, unfortunately, for Yoda. All of his attack forces cleaned up for the most part. We see wave 2 of aggression coming in, and Monster, like I said, could not have picked a better time to move in and engage this. As it stands, the last few Marines are getting cleaned up pretty effectively. 1 siege tank on the ground, it gets destroyed, and the SCV line's about to be ravaged.
Great control there with those slings as well, reinforcing. He made them come in different paths. If there were siege tanks that were up, they wouldn't all die off immediately. They wouldn't group up naturally. So that was really well done by Monster, keeping up the aggression. Now this third is certainly in trouble here as Lynx make their way down there as well. This orbital explodes down as well. Monster, when it comes to mutilating Baneling, man, he is top tier when it comes to this play.
Oh my god, and yet more workers being killed down here at the bottom. He's killed 54 workers, 69 supply to 164 at the moment. That's GG. Yoda goes down, and our back and forth match continues to be very back and forth as MVP takes game number 6.
Alrighty, man. So Monster did pretty well there. Let's see what exactly we're going to be having thrown out from IM, because actually what it comes down to is Monster is not so good against Zerg players. He's really good against Protoss, pretty stellar against Terran, but when it comes to Zerg, he kind of falls off a little bit. So. And
we're going to see a pretty heavy hitter here for Incredible Miracle. It is indeed a Zerg player. Our first mirror match of the day, it's Lysira.
Lysira popping out, and this is kind of getting to the big guns. They're expecting Lysira to try and win this, and then try and finish it up really strong if they throw out any Terrans or Protoss, because Lysira is really good against Terran players. So, wow, maybe they're kind of expecting maybe, I don't know who they're expecting to come after this. Let's just go and jump in the games, man. It's going to be ZVZ. Let's start it up.